It looks like it's going on.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the Erie County Council Legislative Meeting, December 3rd, 2016. I will ask everyone in hand bill to be set for the prayer. That is for the
Lord God, our Heavenly Father, we worship you in the beauty of your holiness. We come into your presence with thanksgiving, for you are a great God and greatly to be praised. We pause to bless your name, for you are our deliverer, you are our healer, you are our Savior. All glory and honor is due unto thy name. Bless this assembly, bless each person assembled for the great cause of the progress of this city. We pray for unity, we pray for mutual agreement on plans and objectives that point to a better Gary. Bless us that we will keep hope alive as we recall and remember your promise that you will never leave nor forsake us. We pray, O God, that the minds of the leaders of this city will be elevated in wisdom and understanding and new challenges that arrive at the doorstep. O God, we ask your blessings upon the sick, upon the bereaved, upon the homeless, and bless those of us who are positioned to be a blessing to those who are less fortunate. In the mighty and gracious name of our Lord and Savior Jesus the Christ, we pray. Amen.
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I would like to have
Councilwoman Brown.
Present.
Councilman Brown.
Here.
Councilwoman Caldwell. Here. Councilman Proto. Councilwoman Rogers. Councilman Smith.
Here.
Councilwoman Sparks Wayne. Here. Councilwoman Wyatt.
Present.
And President Bowie. Mr. President, there are 7 present.
Present, I move that the minutes from the previous meeting be adopted.
Councilwoman Brown.
Yes.
Councilman Brown.
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell.
Yes.
Councilman Smith. Councilwoman Sparks Wade.
Yes.
Councilwoman Wyatt.
Yes.
And President Bowie. Mr. President, vote is 7-0. CBO 2019-67, an ordinance appropriating 2020 budget for the operating expenses of grants, donations, special revenue funds for the City of Gary for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2020 and ending December 31st, 2020. Sponsored by Mayor Karen Freeman Wilson, City of Gary, Angela Hayes, City Clerk. CBO 2019-68, an ordinance authorizing the City of Gary, Lake County, Indiana, to make temporary loans to meet current running expenses for the use of the general fund and park and recreation fund and anticipation of current taxes levying year 2019, collecting year 2020. Estimated to be received on or before December 31st, 2020, authorizing the issuance of tax anticipation warrants to evidence such loans and the sale of such warrants to the Hammond Local Public Improvement Bond Bank, and appropriating and pledging the tax to be received in such funds to the punctual payment of such warrants, including the interest thereon. Sponsored by Mayor Karen from the Wilson, City of Gary, Angela Hayes, City Controller. CPO 2019-69, an ordinance approving subsidies of various city accounts and mayoral donations for calendar year 2019. Sponsored by Mayor Karen from Wilson, City of Gary, Angela Hayes, City Controller.
Mr. President, I move that CPO 2019 70, 71, 72, and 73 be added to the agenda.
Second.
Yeah, 70, 71, 72, and 73.
71. There's
Did you have 70?
no.
And of course, it should be 71, I believe, 72, 73.
No, I have this one. What is this? Someone gave me that one. Okay. I'm sorry. CPO 2019, 71, 72, and 73.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilwoman Wade. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Brown?
Yes.
Councilman Brown?
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell?
Yes.
Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Councilwoman Sparks Wade?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wyatt?
Yes.
And President Brewer.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 7-0.
Vote of 7-0, CPO 2019, 71, 72, 73 has been added to our agenda.
CPO 2019-71, an ordinance approving the amended and restated local agreement between the City of Gary and Majestic Star Casino LLC and Majestic Star Casino 2 LLC. Sponsored by Mayor Karen Finn Wilson, City of Gary, Angela Hayes, City Controller.
Right.
CPO 2019-72, an ordinance authorizing the City of Gary to make temporary loans to meet current running expenses for the use of the general fund, park fund of the issuer in anticipation of and not in excess of current taxes levied in the year 2019, collected in the year 2020. Authorizing the issuance of temporary loan tax anticipation warrants to evidence such loans and the sale of such warrants to the Indiana Bond Bank, and appropriating and pledging the tax to be received in such funds to the punctual payment of such warrants, including the interest thereon. Sponsored by Mayor Karen from the Wilson, City of Gary, Angela Hayes, City Controller.
Finance.
CPO 2019-73, an ordinance prohibiting portable basketball hoops on city streets. Sponsored by Councilwoman Levita Sparks Wade.
Public safety.
Mr. President, as assignment of pending ordinances and resolutions.
Mr. President, Finance Committee has before it CPO 2019-67. For the record, I approve this ordinance for reporting out to the council. Councilwoman Caldwell
Yes.
and Councilman Smith.
Yes.
Mr. President, a majority of the Finance Committee has approved CPO 2019-67 for reporting out to the council. Finance Committee has before it CPO 2019-68. For the record, I approve this ordinance for reporting out to the council. Councilwoman Caldwell
Yes.
and Councilman Smith.
Yes.
Mr. President, a majority of the Finance Committee has approved CPO 2019-68 for reporting out to the council. Finance Committee has before it CPO 69, I'm sorry. For the record, I approve this ordinance for reporting out to the council. Councilwoman Caldwell
Yes.
and Councilman Smith. Mr. President, a majority of the Finance Committee has approved CPO 2019-69 for reporting out to the council. Finance Committee has before it CPO 2019-72. For the record, I approve this ordinance for reporting out to the council. Councilwoman Caldwell
Yes.
and Councilman Smith.
Yes.
Mr. President, a majority of the Finance Committee has approved CPO 2019-72 for reporting out to the council. Finance Committee has before it CPO 2019-71. For the record, I approve this ordinance for reporting out to the council. Councilwoman Caldwell.
Yes.
And Councilman Smith.
Yes.
Mr. President, a majority of the Finance Committee has approved CPO 2019-71 for reporting out to the council.
Mr. President, the Public Safety Committee would like to report out for ordinance number 2019-73. Committee members, Councilman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the majority of the members of the Public Safety Committee has approved ordinance 2019-73.
Mr. President, the Finance Committee would like to report out CPO 2019-67, 1968, 1969, 1971, and 1972. 1967, 1968, 1969, 1971, and 1972.
Mr. President, Public Safety Committee would like to report out 2019-73.
Thank you. Council, before we go to President elect, let the mayor go with
Mr. Mr. Chairman and members of the council, many of you, well, I think all of you have been involved with the approval of appointees, of mayoral appointees to the Port Commission. Mr. William Godwin resigned, and upon his resignation, he recommended, and I certainly supported wholeheartedly, the appointment of David Gearman. I sent the council an email around 9 today. I actually thought I sent it at midnight last night, but that's the problem with working late. But Mr. Gearman is a logistics person, actually a manager with Federal Express, and has significant expertise. He's a resident of Gary, who lives on Oak Avenue, has been active in the community, a fairly new resident, I might add, and but has been very instrumental and knows a lot about logistics. And of course, you are all familiar with the study that talks about the Buffington Harbor area as an intermodal hub. So I would simply ask for a motion that that you accept my recommendation of David Gearman to the Port Authority.
Mr. President, I move that Mr. David
Gearman.
Gearman
Yes.
be appointed to the board.
Second.
move department second. Roll call,
Councilwoman Brown.
Yes.
Councilman Brown.
Yes?
Councilwoman Caldwell.
Yes.
Councilman Smith.
Yes.
Councilwoman Sparks Wade.
Yes.
Councilwoman Wyatt.
Yes.
And President Brewer.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 7-0.
Vote 7-0. Mr. David Gearman has been appointed to the Port Authority. Order.
Mr. President.
Congratulations.
Mr. President.
Councilman Brown.
The city has received the following donation, and so I need to make a motion that we accept this donation. We received $100 from the National Sorority of Phi Delta Kappa Incorporated to be used to purchase general operating supplies, I'm assuming, at the Rainbow Shelter. So that is my motion.
Second.
Department second to accept the donation of this outline of Councilman Brown. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Councilwoman Sparks Wade,
Yes.
Councilwoman Wyatt,
Yes.
and President Brewer.
Yes.
Mr. President, vote is 7-0.
Vote is 7-0. The donation of gifts outlined by Councilwoman Brown has been ordered. Time for person select. Councilwoman Caldwell.
Thank you. Boards and commissions has the following vacancies. We have a Republican vacancy for the Transportation Board. All interested residents of the city of Gary should send your resume and letter of interest to the Gary Common Council, 401 Broadway, Suite 103, Gary, Indiana, 46402. Petition Councilwoman Linda Barnes Caldwell. Boards and commissions would like to have a standing committee meeting Tuesday, December the 10th at 6 p.m. In the Cleo Weston Council Lounge on the second floor of City Hall. At this time, we'll go over the resumes that we have for the following, the last positions that I posted, which were zoning. Yeah, zoning. And let me go back to this one for the Transportation Board. The deadline for the resumes is Friday, December the 6th. So at that time, zoning and transportation, yes. So on December the 10th at 6 o'clock, we'll interview those people who send in their information. The deadline for the transportation is Friday, December the 6th, at the end of the day. Thank you.
Anyone else? Person select.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, the public safety. A year. Oh, a year, Mr. Chairman.
Any other councilman, person select?
Mr. President,
Councilwoman White.
just a question, and I do have an announcement, but for the Boards and Commissions Chair, Lynn Barnes Caldwell, is there an appointee to the Economic Development Commission?
It hasn't been appointed yet. It's still open.
Okay. Would that be discussed on the 10th as well?
We had that meeting, it just hasn't been announced
Oh,
yet. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, and my announcement is that we will have our final Arts, Culture, and History Committee meeting on Wednesday, December 10th. It'll be at 6 p.m., and it will be in the council lounge. And as always, everyone is welcome to participate. We expect to have the United Male Chorus, and when we've had that before, they have performed a couple of numbers for us. They are coming up to their 70th anniversary as an organization in the city of Gary. So it's something to be commended, and if you can come to their, to the Art, Culture, and History Committee, we'd love to have you. Thank you.
Excuse me, you said Wednesday, December 10th.
11th, I'm sorry,
It's okay.
December 11th. It is a Wednesday, but it is December 11th.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to give a portion of my time to Mr. Sidney Savage. He's got an announcement, and would you go ahead and close?
Good evening, council. It's been about 5.5 months since the first time I've addressed this governing body in regards to what we were planning for a father and daughter ball. And I am here today excited to tell you that it is happening this Saturday at the Genesis Convention Center, and it is going to be hosted by Ricky Smiley. We're excited for this for many reasons. Because we know we want to shine a positive spotlight on the importance and beauty of father-daughter relationships. And I feel like especially in our community, the outstanding support of the community is just breathtaking. Just to name a few of the sponsors, we have Mr. Cedric Parker that owns hair cream, Auburn Butters, and then we have Oak Knoll Renaissance Apartments and Willows on Clark Road that are sponsors. We have Lakeshore Dunes, formerly known as Lakeshore Dunes Apartments, but now it's called Miller Beach Apartments, a major sponsor. And we just got picked up by Xfinity Comcast as a sponsor as well for this amazing event. The outpour of support, love, it's just overwhelming. And the Genesis Center has been, Ms. Deborah Duck has been awesome with helping me to navigate the correct contacts. Attorney Renzer Williams, thank you so much for your sponsorship. These young ladies, the Gary Community School Corporation is our partners in this event. Mrs. Chelsea Winnington is just an awesome woman, and they have our back there organizing what we call our Adopt-A-Daughter for daughters without fathers or father figures, so they're identifying positive male role models to escort these young ladies to the ball. We've partnered with the school city of Hammond. We actually did a promo video with the superintendent where they're partnering with us. And I delivered yesterday 10,000 flyers with a special discount code that's going to be sent home to every student of that school organization. I'm just elated. We have Apostle Benny Maybon, Faith Tabernacle Deliverance Center, sponsor of this event. And we have New Friendship Missionary Baptist Church, New Friendship Anointed Voices, that's going to be opening us up in this ball with a gospel segment. And I'm just elated. And with that sponsor and with that support, we're able to have this awesome event. But we're not quite just there yet. And I come to you with a plea. We need a little bit more support financially to get over the threshold. So my plea to you is, please, if you can, help us to get across that threshold. I'm willing to accept, we can talk it out if you need your logo anywhere or if you need a promo done or anything like that, we're willing to do it. But I just thank you. It's been 5.5 months, June 18th of this year, that I first addressed this council with this vision. And it is truly fulfilling itself. And that's all I have. Thank you so much.
And I just want to say to Mr. Savage, he's worked so tremendously hard for this event. I'm glad that we're now seeing the culmination of it from the beginning when we were able to secure Ricky Smiley to today. Congratulations, you've done a fantastic job.
Anyone else on special select?
I'm sorry. I'm almost through though, so. I'd like to first thank the administration, the mayor for paving 40th Avenue East. That's the street by the post office, in front of the post office. Thank you. In the 40 years that I've lived in Glen Park, that's the first time that this street has ever been paved. as well as 43rd Avenue East. And we also got I did have an opportunity to speak with one of the representatives of the railroad in regards to the closures in the 6th District. And of course, he said it would be an impossible task, nearly impossible. And I said, well, you know, I serve a God who can do the impossible. When men say that it's impossible, my God can do the impossible. So it's going to be a fight, but we're in it to win it. And so he did give me another contact, so we're going up the chain of command, and we will continue with this fight. And lastly, our final 6th District meeting for 2019 is going to be held on Thursday, December 12th at 5 o'clock p.m. at the Blind Social Center, 4955 Broadway. And the topic of discussion will be the closure of the railroad crossings within the 6th District and anything else you want to talk about, because our special guest will be our 6th District Councilman-elect, Mr. Dwight Williams, as well as Clotilde LeBroy or someone from the Board of Public Works and Safety. Thank you, Mr. President.
This Thursday will be our final cleanup committee meeting for the year. We will start that in March of next year. But this will be our final meeting, and I'm asking all that can come out this Thursday at 5:30 to 6:30. We only need 1 hour. This is our wrap-up session here, and discuss plans for 2024. For the past 2 weeks, and I have talked to the mayor since I wanted to take it public, because I've been getting several calls from people about the operation that is taking place at the Amazon on 15th Avenue. I think it's a good operation. I'm happy to see the traffic there, but sometimes it causes problems for other businesses at the same time. On Long Texas Street, there's so much traffic there where they're cheating the traffic that's going for other businesses trying to get in and out. So they're taking up both sides of the street. And it's causing the safety risk where accidents are almost getting ready to happen, or it's going to happen, you know, where people are taking packages, where they're forgetting something, and they're running back and forth across the traffic there. So different businesses have been calling me. I know the union from U.S. Steel have been definitely reaching out to me very strongly and opposing how the traffic is situated along Texas Street there. So I'm asking that our traffic department can get back and get some type of resolution taken care of very soon. You know, with the Christmas holiday, Amazon has really wrapped up business very heavy in that area there. You go by any time during the day, you see a lot of traffic going in and out. And they have also expressed interest that they have some property that they will allow Amazon to use for additional parking too if they should need it. But definitely go along that. With traffic that needs to go up and down the street, where it has almost impeded to one lane traffic there with both cars parking. If there's nothing else, we will move right into the third and final.
CPO 2019-64, an ordinance established a new fund and department for Lake County Fetal Infant Mortality Review Grant, sponsored by Mayor Karen Freeman Wilson, City of Gary, Angela Hayes, City Controller Louise Radney, Northwest Healthy Start.
Mr. President, I move for passage of CPO 2019-64 on third and final reading. I talked to someone from the Health Department, and they assured me that they would be here today to talk about this.
Second.
Okay.
It's been moved and properly second. All of you at this time, representative from the health department.
Reese drop.
So that would be the
Yes,
review from
yes,
Northwest
yes.
Indiana Health
Okay.
Department Cooperative.
Okay.
So you want me to talk about?
Give us an overview.
Oh,
of what
okay.
this is about.
All right. Well, good evening, council. Northwest Indiana Health Department Cooperative, it has received funds from the state of Indiana, State Department of Health, to conduct what is called the Fetal Infant Mortality Review. The acronym is FEMR. This is a review process that will ultimately help with the reduction of infant mortality. The review process is conducted in 2 tiers. There is what's called a case review team that is comprised of clinical people like physicians and nurses, as well as some public health professionals that would review on an individual case the records of infants that have passed. Okay. We would look at hospital records as well as their physician records. We would seek to also talk to the mom that lost that infant to get a feel for what her experience was. That review process, and as I said, they are taken on an individual basis, that review process then is moved to what is called a community action team. That community action team is made up of community people, those that are public health providers, representatives from various organizations that would take that information and look at maybe what were the barriers, what kind of system changes that we could make to improve outcomes for both women and babies. So it is something like public health surveillance that we do as we look at these individual cases. Now, the unique thing about it is that it is de-identified. It's not about trying to assign blame. It's just looking at contributing factors and where we could improve for systems to improve outcomes for women and children.
Any questions, Councilman?
Mr. President,
Councilman White?
last time we were told that there would be one employee paid on the payroll and then one from independent contractor, but still out of this grant.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, and there would be 2 independent contractors, one to look at the clinical review, doing the abstracting of charts, and one that would actually talk to the mothers, doing the maternal interview.
On the professional services line, unless I'm looking at the wrong one, it just says $9,812. It doesn't seem like enough.
She may have combined both of those.
Yeah.
And it sounds like that's what that is, it's a combination between the 2. So,
Okay.
but it would be split between 2 people.
Okay, thank you.
Any other councilman? Thank you.
Thank you.
Tonight is set aside public portion. Anyone like to speak for or against CPO 2019-64? You have 3 minutes to speak on this ordinance. Seeing none, public portion now closed. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Brown?
Yes.
Councilman Brown?
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell?
Yes.
Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Councilwoman Sparks Wade?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wyatt?
Yes.
And President Brewer.
Yes.
Mr. President, vote is 7-0.
With a vote of 7-0, CPO 2019-64 has passed on third and final, so ordered.
CPO 2019-65, an ordinance establishing a community benefits agreement sponsored by Rebecca Wyatt, Councilwoman, 1st District.
Oh, Mr. President, I move the CPO 2019-65 be referred back to the committee.
Second?
Can we amend it before we?
That wasn't mine, was it? Okay.
The mayor can use the amendment because what she wants to talk about is the amendment for the committee. So she can use the amendment now and still send it back to the committee.
I'm fine.
Okay.
So, Mr. President, I move the CPO 2019-65 be amended by substitution.
Second.
Moved properly second. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Brown?
Yes.
Councilman Brown?
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell?
Yes.
Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Councilwoman Sparks Wade?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wyatt?
Yes.
And President Brewer.
Yes.
Mr. President, vote is 7-0.
Vote of 7-0, CPO 2019-65 has been amended. Need a motion to send it back to committee.
Mr. President, I move that CPO 2019-65 be moved back to committee.
Second.
Moved properly second. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Brown?
Yes.
Councilman Brown?
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell?
Yes.
Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Councilwoman Sparks Wade?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wyatt?
Yes.
And President Brewer.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 7-0.
Vote of 7-0, CPO 2019-65 is moving back to the Finance Committee.
CPR 2019-09, a resolution by the Gary County Council in regards to the Gary Community School Corporation, sponsored by Levita Sparks Wade, Councilwoman of the 6th District, Gary County Council.
Mr. President, I move to amend by substitution CPR 2019-09.
Second.
Moved properly second. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Brown?
Yes.
Councilman Brown?
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell?
Yes.
Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Councilwoman Sparks Wade?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wyatt?
Yes.
And President Brewer.
Yes.
Mr. President, vote is 7-0.
Vote of 7-0, CPO 2019-65 has, CPR 2019-09 has been amended.
Attorney Coleman and Mr. Coleman.
Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you so much, Councilwoman Sparks Wade and the council for bringing this before you. I'm here with my husband, Robert Coleman, who's the president of the Westside Leadership Academy, PTSA. And so basically the resolution is asking for three things for the Gary Community School Corporation, for the state of Indiana to forgive the debt, to return the school district to local control, and to fix Westside Leadership Academy. And Ms. Sparks Wade and I, we're parents. And so as parents, there comes a point where you have to fight for your children. And then in Gary, we have to realize the historical policies of the state that we live in that have led to many of our economic conditions. One, we're in a state where U.S. Steel went from paying $66 million to $13 million. The reality is that Gary did have a segregated school system. So when segregation was repealed in the state of Indiana, we went from 20 schools to 40, with about 18 of those schools being all Caucasian Americans. And then at that time, you had a school district of about 42,000 students. But now we're at about 5,000. So the reality is that our community has went through changes, but our children still deserve the best. And at Westside, you have great students, but you got to have resources. Any parent knows that children will take all of the time and money that you have. And still, as a parent, you will wish that you had more time to pour into your child. So this council today gets to take a stand. So when we go to Indianapolis, we can let them know You forgave charter schools over $91 million of debt. Why wouldn't you do that for the Gary Community School Corporation? Why wouldn't you do that? And then on top of that, as African Americans, we, as Americans, period, we should be concerned anytime a government tells us that we need oversight or an overseer. Because there's a reason in a democracy that we elect our leaders. And so now that you have this push in our country where you find minority communities that may have economic problems, that may need additional resources to get their children counseling, that does not mean that you expect the government to eliminate all the people you can elect and then put their person in charge. That is the most un-American concept, and we shouldn't allow it here. So when we ask for local control back, it's important that with history, that our leaders make a record of where we stand. And the state of Indiana, with their billions in surplus, we have to send a message that our children deserve it. Instead of paying $13 million here to for-profit corporations while they get rich, and then the debt increases, and the test scores go down, there's something wrong with that. So eventually, hopefully, we will demand the change that our children need. Because if we don't ask for it, who's going to give it to them? And if you can see a community have a crisis with opioids, and you get the counseling and the needles and the resources, and then we see crisis in our community, and there's no outcry to say, hey, that money has to go to the children. We got to give them proper facilities. We got to make sure they have the wraparound services. That's what we expect as Americans in an American school system. So this resolution that we're asking the council to pass is to take a stand. Let the state of Indiana know that we expect justice. We expect debt to be forgiven. If you could forgive it for others, you forgive it for us. We expect Westside to be fixed. As parents, we know they have the money. They have a swim team. Give the children a swimming pool. We got the next Michael Phelps there. Why do we have to beg for this? But the reality is we do. And also restore local control. As American citizens, we want to elect the people who represent us. And also for those children coming up behind us, we want them to know that they have the right to run for office. They have the right to serve. And we do not expect our government to conquer American cities and take over. So thank you so much.
I'm looking at your number 3. You said Westside. We have other Gary community schools that are not 100%. I work at one of them every day, and I think that we should include all the schools, not just Westside. I understand the problems that Westside has, but the other schools have problems also. So,
And that's a good point by the council. And one thing I would encourage too, this resolution started with the Westside PTSA because I'm the field service representative of the Indiana State PTA. And so basically as a parent, I'm going to different schools saying, parents, what do you want for your children? Because if you don't ask for it, who's going to ask for it? This is what Westside did. And I agree too that you look at the bigger picture, and that's also important with the city plan. And this gets into history with Gary's city plan, where you work with your government that as a city plan, if this is what we're looking at with our school districts, the schools that need to be taken down, the facilities that need to be fixed, you all do have a voice, even though it's a separate unit of government. So that would be your option to make it broader and request a study. But the resolution we're putting before you today is specifically for Westside because now you're down to one high school that at least they could fix that one.
But the debt is for all the schools in Gary, right?
Well, the debt goes over the cumulative, and one of the issues is when the state started with a financial specialist, it looks like the number was at about 75 million. Now it's like at over 90. So this help, you're getting your debt increasing. So now you have a government unit in deficit spending, but we know our whole country is in debt. But for a school system, how do you create new money? Especially when in Gary you have a proliferation of different charter schools and different other entities where your numbers don't remain stable. So that's where the debt forgiveness is important.
Mr. President. Councilman Smith. So who's going to take this message downstate?
We will, as a parent. And it's, well, we've already had, because we went to the State Board of Education. We've talked before them. They're setting up meetings here in Gary. We filed objections. So we do know that a lot of this fight is in Indianapolis, and there's a lot of parents who have been getting on I-65 to go to those meetings to say, we want justice. And as one parent said, if we don't have peace, you don't have peace. If our kids need something, we're not going away, because they had the money.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you. I certainly applaud what you guys are doing. I think it's awesome. What's Plan B if we're fortunate enough to convince the state to deal with the $91 million and make some of the changes for the West Side Academy? Will we then start going to like phase 2 into the middle schools and then the elementary schools? I mean, what's our next plan?
Well, hopefully the start is to get the state to start putting the resources directly into the schools and the facilities and looking at the future versus all these for-profit contracts. Because if we could change that whole paradigm, that we say we need help, we need financial resources, and instead of the state saying, okay, let's put this money in forgiving the debt, let's help them fix these buildings, they're giving it to for-profit corporations. So somehow, once you change that whole paradigm, then it gives us an opportunity to say, hey, let's get this budget stable. And as leaders in our community, I know you all are well aware of the unique circumstances that Gary faces when we're trying to balance these government budgets. So there comes a point, if your numbers don't add up, that you don't have an extra 100,000 people buying properties. Eventually, something has to be done to stabilize that budget where you're not constantly in deficit spending, where you got to get loan after loan to survive. So hopefully there's been petitions filed regarding the budget, and hopefully as a community we can have these honest conversations with Indianapolis that we don't need takeover. We got great kids. This is a great community. We just need resources, and so that's where we have to come together, look at the numbers, build a plan, return it to local control so we can talk to our leaders in Gary and not have to get on I-65 once a month to talk to them. And at some of the meetings, they don't have a public portion. So you go to DUAP, they don't have to hear you.
My next question is, if I hope you're successful, the issue of referendums, do you think that may come up? Because, you know, some of the other school districts throughout Lake County have passed referendums, and in the process, as you do, they've built schools, they financed, where would you possibly be as far as trying to get a referendum passed here in our city after we've requested all this financial? Because, again, I support what you're doing, but I also feel like, there's going to be a part where we're going to have to do something as well.
Right, and that's the conversation that hopefully we get local control, that we can talk to our leaders about it. But then, too, once again, looking at America, if you have a community where your median income is $15,000, and then you have a community where the median income is $60,000, $70,000, and then you recognize which communities are passing a referendum, there comes a point where we need some equity and we need fairness. because the reality here, 60% of our children are in poverty, that our median income isn't there. Our average price of a home isn't comparing. And a lot of times in our Constitution, we look at disparate impact. That discrimination can take the form of, okay, we don't have it. We love our children. We just, sometimes people don't have it. So do you get penalized for it? Or do we get equity where they could look at the unique circumstances in Gary and say, hey, let us help this community. Let us stabilize this budget. Let us help them help these American children and this American school system that just happens to have a harsh economic reality that has been years in the making. It didn't happen over one term, but now we have to fix it. And then hopefully we fix it now, then future generations, they're not worried about getting a loan or trying to cover this NIPSCO bill, but they have stability and they have numbers that are sustainable.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms.
Thank you,
Schuler.
Let me go around. Anyone else that hasn't spoke yet, or go around to Councilwoman Wade,
And I would like to thank both Attorney Coleman and Mr. Coleman for the work that they have done on this particular resolution. And we did have a group from Roosevelt to actually approach us at the last meeting. And, you know, we would like to be able to include Roosevelt as well, but that would take a little bit more involvement. They are having a meeting next Monday downstate. I'm sorry.
December
December
16th at 5:00 p.m. at Indiana University Northwest to address Roosevelt. Because part of us, the urgency for us to go to Indianapolis is to tell them, you need to come here. These are local issues where our local citizens need to be heard. So, but December 16th at 5 p.m., everybody please save that date. It should be at Indiana University Northwest to let your voice be heard.
And so the charter schools have not done a better job at educating our children. And neither has MGT or Edison Learning. They're getting worse grades than our school system, our public school system with local control prior to the takeover. And I believe we haven't talked about it here tonight, but the formula for divvying up money, you touched on it in regards to the gap in median income. But effectively, instead of Brown versus Board of Education and eliminating what's the word? Segregation. Now, this is a class issue. This is a class issue, and our children should not have to suffer because they are not in the right class. Education cannot wait. That's the one thing that levels the playing field. Education levels the playing field, and they should have an opportunity to get the same education as do those whose median income is much higher than those in the city of Gary. So again, thank you for leading the charge on this, and I do hope that my colleagues support this amended resolution on tonight.
Councilman Smith.
Thank you, sir. Okay, I'm just listening, and first of all, I agree with what you're saying 100%. But have you and your group reached out and armed the representatives here, give them an agenda to take downstate?
Yeah.
And normally, they just go and do what they want to do.
And we don't have necessarily lobbyists, and that's where other groups get us. They hire lobbyists to stay in Indianapolis, but we are, and that's what we're doing as parents. And that's what I really want to commend the community, even with this petition that we filed to object to the budget. That's 300 citizens that signed that petition. So people are outraged and they're concerned and they want to help their children. But then we have this political state that, as we know, is mostly Republican, that we have to make our voices be heard to let them know. Even Republicans believe in less government, but now we're in a city where you're telling us you want to take over and pay for profit. So it doesn't even line up with their philosophy. So that's where we as parents, we're asking them come here, have the hearings, and that's where we're asking people when they do have these hearings here in Gary, please come out to let them know. Please let them know we care about our children. We care.
Mr. President, I would like to make a motion to amend this resolution once again. It's no way that the 9 of us can pass a resolution just for West Side, as I said, when we have all the other schools in the city. So you can keep in here what you want done to West Side, but I need something done in Bethune, where I'm at every day, and Beveridge, and all the other schools. So, yeah.
I have to tend to agree with you. I think it needs to go back to committee because this is not an agenda that I would say I want to go down. It's not spelling out what the real problem is. We talk about the charter school, but it should say inside the resolution the disparity of what's going on with the charter school, as far as the grades and the debt that was forgiven in there. All of that should be spelled out in this resolution. When we talk about agenda going down state, we should know what's going on with the Roosevelt alumni, the Word alumni. Everyone should be on the same page on the agenda for the school corporation. Now, I will say, I remember when we had the city patrol and appointees and things of that nature of our school system. And I remember going inside the Roosevelt when they said there was no heat and Gary was in control. And they said, well, the heat is working. And I go downstairs and I look at the boiler system, water's pouring out the boiler. Now, I'm in construction. I know a boiler has to have so much pressure to make sure that it gets the right temperature and to be able to heat properly. But consultants will tell me that it's okay, it's working. The kids can come back into school. Gary control. I sat and watched Pulaski. In dead winter, we put a brand new boiler in there. We knew we was going to close Pulaski. We put a brand new boiler in that school, and it's in there right now. If the scrappers ain't got it, ain't got it. City control. If you take Emerson, we put a $2 to $3 million roof on that building and closed that school the following year. I'm not saying something is wrong with city control, but there was a reason why we got to the point where we're at now. When we talk about getting city control, show me a plan how you're going to manage it. Then I can support it. But what I have seen, that we have had failed systems from when I was in school. I watched our school get closed and work. I watched other schools, different amenities that we have inside school, just go without a concern. Now we say give it back to us, and give it back to us and what? I understand it sounds good, but let's really think about what we asking for. And I really think, I'm not saying we kill it, but I'm saying we should go back to the table and let's really sit down and let's have a real good discussion. And let's include everybody inside it. Because I understand what Councilwoman is saying. You do have other schools that's involved in this. Other schools have concerns and issues. But we shouldn't go down with an issue, go down state and lobby for one school when we have elementary school that's in trouble. We have middle school that's in trouble and the high school. Yes, there is some good points in here, but there's some more that needs to be added.
I'm glad that you brought up them issues.
Let me go back to my colleague and come back.
Mr. Chair, I would like to make it clear that I think they've done a great job with what they've done so far. And there has to be a starting point. I do understand. I do understand about the issues with the other schools throughout the city. I fully understand. I'm aware of it as a citizen. I'm aware of the high schools, the middle schools, elementary schools. But there has to be a blueprint, and I believe this is the blueprint for us to get started. And I think that if that was the issue, we should have explained it to them when they came to us before, because then they could have, made whatever adjustment. But I think at this point, I certainly want to support it the way it is. Give us an opportunity to take it downstate, talk with our legislators, talk with whatever lobbyists that we can get, and find out what we can get from the start, because we have to start somewhere. If we try to do the entire city at one time, it could be overwhelming to the state, and they may as well need to see what we're capable of doing. And if we do try to do too much, we may not be successful. So let's start right here, Mr. Chairman.
I'm glad that you brought up those issues, that you stated that you know the conditions that everything been in. Why haven't the council people did something about it? And I'm tired of you all passing the buck. That's what you're doing now. This is just phase one. Okay, we care about all the schools. This is phase one. I think outside the box. Fix West Side, then from 15th Avenue and Jerry, Ivanhoe on back, you can build a high-tech school there. We are so far behind here in this area. And if you all have seen the conditions of these school systems and everything, why haven't y'all did something? Why haven't you spoke up, Brewer? And like when you stated these other schools, see, I always get cut off.
Well, and I want to thank, if I may, sir.
We're done.
Mr. President. No, Mr. President, I didn't get,
I'm sorry, Councilwoman Wyatt.
I did not get an opportunity. I did not get an opportunity to say that I am in support of the resolution as written. I concur with Councilman Brown and Councilwoman Sparks Wade. We need to do something. We can't wait until we can fix the whole thing. This is before us. They have worked very hard on it. I believe that we should go ahead and pass this, and then we continue to work from there. And don't delay anymore. We need to act now. Every day, these kids are getting older in schools and in conditions that they are not able to learn adequately. So we need to act now, and I support it, and I support it as written, and I would oppose amending it at this point. I would not oppose another resolution next meeting for another school, but I believe that we need to support this resolution right now, tonight.
Thank you.
There won't be any public portion because this is a resolution, so I'm sorry. Councilman Smith, your last.
Yes, sir. Mr. President, in order to find a happy medium in this resolution, okay, I agree with everything that's been said here. I do. I agree with all. But to find a happy medium here, it should be amended to say this is phase one, and that there's more to come, or something to that effect. But that way, you're happy with it, because you know it's going to be expanded later. And this is just step one to start. Right?
Mr. Chair,
Make sense? This is just phase one.
and Mr. Chair, I can certainly agree with that. Because once we get started, we want all of the schools to be in top condition. That is our goal.
All the debt.
We just want to
We
be
want,
working on
we
this.
want all,
This is just phase one.
and guys, we also want them to raise these other buildings that we're finding bodies in. That children are using abandoned buildings to hang out in and do drugs in and make it very, very unsafe.
Leave bodies.
So
in.
there are some other things that we want to add as we go along. We really do want to do that. But I would agree to amend it to reflect the, what Councilman Smith just indicated.
Yeah, it's just a start.
Well, let me just say, and I'll finish with this. I have went to these schools first myself. I brought this back to the council. I have even brought investors to the school corporation and when I spoke to them about people possibly want to turn buildings over. And one particular one that sits out is Wallace High School. We had, well, the casino is going right now, matter of fact. We had the Rock Church there that made up a significant offer there. But we said our schools was worth more money and we wanted the biggest offer to come, and we waited. So we lost the Rock Church. We lost investment here. We lost them as, spiritual partners inside the city. They moved outside the city. So we
And there
lost
was a
them.
tax
So-
bill too.
So, when you say that you haven't done anything, you haven't, I have walked those school halls. I have walked, seen kids out there protesting and when you seen what's going on. But I would just say, I'm not trying to kill it, but what I'm saying is, I think we should have taken it back to committee and had more of a discussion. Because you're gonna send a resolution and you're talking about going down state and petitioning the legislators. If you ever been down there and talked to the legislators, you're gonna need a little bit more than just what you're passing here to make it strong. That's what we're going now. But we can go with recommendations and we can do a roll call and see where it goes.
I had a motion on the floor for amendment
Okay. And your amendment was,
to include all the schools.
is there a second on that amendment?
Wait a minute.
He has a motion on the floor to include all the schools inside this resolution.
How do we want to, how do we want to say that?
She want them all at one time.
You can keep what you want done the west side, but like I said, I would love for all the schools to be included. You want all the debt removed, right?
Yeah, we're talking about that, but I'm saying in regards to repairs, we don't know specifically what other repairs need to be made at the other schools. We're making the assumption that those basic repairs are being made, but what specifically,
I don't know what all the schools require. You know, last year the middle school was so small that they had trailers brought in. The locker rooms were a horrible mess and everything. I don't know if they've upgraded them and taken care of them or not. It's just repairs.
Mr. President, there is actually an assessment of all of the repairs that need to be done with all schools. So you could reference this to say, start with West Side and reference that assessment and make repairs in accordance with the assessment that has been done with all the schools. I think council, I think that, council, that Attorney Coleman is familiar with that assessment.
so can we change that motion to, can you say that again? Or can we just so move?
I'd like to know what we're voting on.
Yes. A motion that the assessment list that the schools have, that we start working on it? Yes.
I second.
Yes,
Mr.
ma'am.
President, it's not that the council has not ever done anything to try and assist. I can recall when we had the meeting at the Chuck Hughes office. And we agreed, as council people, we agreed to give so much money to do repairs at the schools. I don't know whatever happened to it. Nobody ever got back to me. I don't think anybody ever got back to us. So it's not as though we have not attempted to do anything, because we've tried.
We even
You
worked
know.
diligently on that referendum.
We did,
that you
yeah.
passed twice.
So it's, well, okay.
I brought a pallet of ceiling tiles to take to the west side 1 year, and they wanted to put the tiles up with what the roof is. You cannot put up ceiling tiles if you have a roof leak.
Right.
I'm just telling you how things work.
When I made that statement, you all might have did something, but nothing physical.
Wait. Your time is up. This is council is talking at this time.
Thank you, yeah.
So what I'm saying is, I think we should really take this back to committee, because you don't want a copy of this tape going down state, and we're talking about we want control, and we can't even come up to how we gonna put this resolution together.
Well, we're not school board members.
I understand that.
You know,
But you're
so-
city council.
Say that again. Say that again. Let me hear that.
So the motion that Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell made, she adjusted it just a little bit. I second that motion.
What is that motion?
The assessment
Yes.
of the repairs for the schools.
Can I speak now, Mr. Chair? So one thing I want to make perfectly clear, it's about the children, not who did what, when, what, and why. I think we need to get focused on how we move forward. We're not here to go back and forth with each other about anything but one thing, the future of the education for our children. And until we focus on that, we can't help them. The mayor made a very good point about there's an assessment for the entire school district. Am I right, Mayor? Right. And based on that, and based on the information that's been presented tonight, the suggestion was that we take that information, since the mayor says it's available, and start with Westside and move forward. Am I right, Mayor? Am I making sense?
That's what I'm
Okay.
suggesting.
And so that seems to me the right way to approach it, because that way everyone gets something. But again, we have to have a starting place. Thank you.
There's a motion on the floor to add assessments, to amend, to add assessment. Roll call for amendment at this time.
Councilwoman Brown.
Yes.
Councilman Brown.
Yes?
Councilwoman Caldwell.
Yes.
Councilman Smith.
Yes.
Councilwoman Sparks Wade.
Yes.
Councilwoman Wyatt.
No.
President Brewer.
No.
Mr. President, vote is 5 yes, 2 noes.
5 yes, 2 no. Amendment for CPO 2019-09 has been amended. Roll call on CPR 2019-09.
Councilwoman Brown.
Yes.
Councilman Brown.
Yes?
Councilwoman Caldwell.
Yes.
Councilman Smith.
Yes.
Councilwoman Sparks Wade.
Yes.
Councilwoman Wyatt.
Yes.
And President Brewer.
No.
Mr. President, vote is 6 yes, 1 no.
With a vote of 6 yes, 1 no, CPR 2019-09 has passed at 1/3 and 5.
Thank you. Have a good night.
CPR 2019-10, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of Gary, Indiana, approving the 2019 City Comprehensive Plan, sponsored by the Department of Redevelopment.
Okay, I'm sorry. I move for passage of CPR. CPR, 2019-10.
Second.
135.
Been moved properly second, vote due at this time.
Mr. President, members of the council, this is the culmination of about a year and a half of work that was done. It was done under the auspices of the Redevelopment Commission. And one of the things that was unique about the development of this comprehensive plan is that there was a committee of citizens who actually led the work. And so in parks, in a variety of areas, they had committees that were led by citizens that met regularly and talked about what they wanted to see in neighborhoods, what they wanted to see in certain areas of the city, and how it should look. A lot of those meetings were held in the actual districts. Some of them were held here. Some of them were held at City Hall. There were actual boards that were published, and this entire plan is actually on the city's website under the Redevelopment Commission. Part and parcel of this development of the comprehensive plan is also the working or the amendment of our zoning ordinances. And, you know, sometimes you get into what comes first, the chicken or the egg, but what the redevelopment director explained and has chosen to do in this instance is to move forward with the comprehensive plan and then to move forward with the amendment of the zoning ordinances. And so this has been favorably looked upon by the Planning Commission. We would ask that you, in fact, pass this resolution so that we can ultimately move forward, or that the next administration, quite frankly, can move forward to the implementation of the comprehensive plan. I will tell you that Mayor-elect Prince has received a full briefing on this comprehensive plan. In fact, he received it from, I believe, Mr. Van Dyke. And there may have been also some follow-up by Mr. Bittner. But this is reflective of a ground-up approach because, or grassroots is probably the better term, a grassroots approach to comprehensive planning. And I think that if you look at the product and what we have come up with, that it is a good product that can be built upon for years to come.
Any questions?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a comment. I recall the comprehensive plan, I should say, and I recall how we went to different parts of the community throughout the city. There were opportunities for citizens to sit, come up with various ideas, and I was impressed with the fact that we learned a lot of things about the city and the makeup of it and the various communities and how things have changed over the years. So we are all here, and how Gary goes based on how we all perceive it right here in this room. And I totally would support the comprehensive plan because I've seen the work that's been done in it, and I certainly would like to see more people get involved as we move forward with this comprehensive plan. So I just want to commend the mayor as well as your staff, and was that Mr. Van Dyke, is that his name?
Mr. Bittner now, but Mr. Van Dyke
at the time.
integral
Yeah.
in this.
That's what we worked with when I came on, so I think they did a great job. I just want to thank you. Okay, Mayor? All right, thank you. All right.
Any other council member?
Mr. President,
Councilwoman.
is there, I know that when we were in committee, we had Mr. Bittner, and he said there is no more industrial land that's added under this comprehensive plan. I just want to make sure that, verify that that is accurate. And I also wanted to see if there was anything in here with regard to schools or school buildings or anything, because I didn't see anything, but from our last conversation on the resolution for the schools, I think it would be important for us to have something in here about which schools we think need to be out and which, you know, if we propose a brand-new school, you know, that kind of thing.
I don't know that we are in a position to do that. But I would ask Mr. Bittner to come forward and address it. I think the comprehensive plan by its very nature is something that the city controls.
Council members, Adrian Benner, Executive Director of Redevelopment for the City of Gary. To answer the councilwoman's question, the comprehensive plan doesn't go into specificity as far as the exact land use configuration of the city as far as contracting or expanding industrial, residential areas. It only is a kind of guide as far as what would be acceptable in certain areas. I think the point that you're referencing is a specific neighborhood that we were looking at during the committee meeting that didn't see an expansion of industrial versus other uses. As far as specific requirements or plans for the schools, that would be a sub-area plan, what I would consider for the city to do, because that would be in direct coordination with the school city itself, because they are their own separate unit of government. There is a section on the schools as far as generally speaking. However, since the city does not have ownership and control of those schools, it would not be under our purview to do so. But certainly something that we could accomplish in joint venture with the school city themselves.
Okay. And just one more question, Mr. President. It is an excellent compilation of the data. I've gone through this, and it, pulls together all of the information. There is only like 1.5 pages for historic preservation, and that, and it just states that those are, those areas are designated as, whether they're on the state registry or the federal registry or no registry at all. I just wanted, is there anything in here that says that we intend, as a city, we intend to preserve those areas?
Well, that's generally handled under the original ordinance that was passed by the city, creating those districts themselves, and they go into far more specificity of that. The comprehensive plan really is a culmination, a collection of other plans. This is not an end-all, be-all. This is the kind of repository for all of that information and a guide pointing to others. I mean, you'll also see in the appendices the references to other plans that have been created previously, the Livable Broadways Plan, the East Lakefront Plan, for example. So this is really a reference point for those other more specific areas of the plan, and certainly there's opportunity for that. But in this, part of the plan, it's going to be a reference to those specific ordinances themselves.
So actually, the recommendation are on the maps. That's what we should be looking
Right.
at for
And-
the conclusion.
Sure, and there's also resources available through the state of Indiana, and there's the Lake County Interim Report, which goes into more detail as far as the cultural and historically significant resources within the city. So there are other resources that go into far more detail than this plan itself,
Okay, thank
especially
you.
for the historic preservation.
Excellent, thank you.
Any other council members?
Thank you.
Thank you. Roll call, Madam Clerk. I'm sorry, on the resolution, there is no public portion. Only kind of public speaks on resolution. Is that? Yeah. And we had a meeting here on the last Tuesday. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Councilwoman Sparks Wade.
Yes.
Councilwoman Wyatt,
Yes.
and President Brewer.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 7-0.
Vote is 7-0. CPR 2019-10 has been adopted and so ordered.
CPR 2019-11, resolution of the Common Council of the City of Gary authorizing acceptance of grant funds, sponsored by Mayor Karen Freeman Wilson, City of Gary.
Mr. President, I move to withdraw CPR 2019-11.
Second.
Move and properly second to withdraw CPR 2019-11. Roll call.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Councilwoman Sparks Wade,
Yes.
Councilwoman Wyatt,
Yes.
and President Brewer.
Yes.
Mr. President, vote is 7-0.
Vote is 7-0. 2019-11 has been withdrawn. So ordered.
Mr. President, is pending ordinances and resolutions on third and final reading.
Council will send ordinance and resolution on second reading.
CPO 2019-67, an ordinance appropriating 2020 budgets for the operating expenses of grants, donations, special revenue funds for the City of Gary for the fiscal year beginning January the 1st, 2020, ending December 31st, 2020. Sponsored by Mayor Karen Freeman Wilson, City of Gary, Angela Hayes, City Controller.
Madam Clerk, can we do them all at once? Can we do one vote? Thank you.
CPO 2019-68, an ordinance authorizing the City of Gary, Lake County, Indiana, to make temporary loans to meet current running expenses for the use of the general fund, park and recreation fund, and anticipation of current taxes levied in the year 2019, collectively year 2020, estimated to be received on or before December 31st, 2020, authorizing the issuance of tax anticipation warrants to evidence such loans and the sale of such warrants to the Hammond Local Public Improvement Bond Bank, and appropriating pledging the taxes to be received in such funds to the punctual payment of such warrants, including the interest thereon. Sponsored by Mayor Karen Freeman Wilson, City of Gary, Angela Hayes, City Controller. CPO 2019-69, an ordinance approving subsidies of various city accounts and mayoral donations for calendar year 2019. Sponsored by Mayor Karen Freeman Wilson, City of Gary, Angela Hayes, City Controller. CPO 2019-71, an ordinance approving the amended and restated local agreement between the City of Gary and Majestic Star Casino LLC and the Majestic Star Casino 2 LLC. Sponsored by Mayor Karen Freeman Wilson, City of Gary, Angela Hayes, City Controller. CPO 2019-72, an ordinance authorizing the City of Gary, Indiana to make temporary loans to meet current running expenses for the use of the general fund and park fund of the issuer in anticipation of and not in excess of current taxes levied in the year 2019, collectively in the year 2020, authorizing the issuance of temporary loan tax anticipation warrants to evidence such loans and the sale of such warrants to the Indiana Bond Bank, and appropriating pledging the taxes to be received in such funds to the punctual payment of such warrants, including the interest thereon, sponsored by Mayor Karen from Wilson, City of Gary, Angela Hayes, City Controller.
I'm sorry. Mr. President, I move for passage of CPO 2019-67, 1968, 1969, 1971, 1972 on second reading. Finance Committee meeting on Tuesday, December 10th at 5:30 PM, and a public hearing on January 7th.
Second.
Moving properly second, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Brown?
Yes.
Councilman Brown?
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell?
Yes.
Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Councilwoman Sparks Wade?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wyatt?
Yes.
And President Brewer.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 7-0.
With a vote of 7-0, CPO 2019-67, 69, 71, 72 is moving to the Finance Committee December 10th at 5:30 PM, and a public hearing December 17th at 6 PM.
CPO 2019-73, an ordinance prohibiting portable basketball hoops on city streets, sponsored by Councilwoman Veta Sparks Wade, Councilwoman of the 6th District.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Brown.
the Public Safety Committee would like to pass this ordinance for a meeting for Tuesday, December the 10th at 5 o'clock PM, and a public hearing for Tuesday, December 17th at 6 o'clock PM.
Second.
Moving properly second. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Brown?
Yes.
Councilman Brown?
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell?
Yes.
Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Councilwoman Sparks Wade?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wyatt?
Yes.
And President Brewer.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 7-0.
Vote of 7-0, CP
2019-73.
CPR.
Is it CPO?
CPO.
CPO? You don't see a CPO.
2019-73 is moving to the Public Safety Committee December 10th at 5 PM, and a public hearing December 17th at 6 PM.
Mr. President, it's pending ordinance and resolutions on second reading.
Now we have a mayor's report.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, I want to first express my heartfelt condolences to the family of Pastor R.T. Mitchell, who made his transition yesterday, certainly to his wife and his daughters. We are sorry about his passing, and I will announce at this time, because they, I believe the arrangements have been finalized, that he will be funeralized on Wednesday at 11 at the Genesis Center. There will be visitation on Tuesday at New Revelation Missionary Baptist Church. I also want to offer my condolences to the families of Reuben Roy, Thomas Jordan, and Romeo Rendina, all former police officers, retired police officers with the city of Gary, and we're certainly sorry to announce their passing, and very grateful for their service. They were active members, certainly Officer Jordan and Roy were active members of the Retired Police and Firefighters Association, so I want to give condolences to their families. I want to also offer condolences to our own city health inspector, James Shelby, in the passing of his daughter, Paige Lampkin, last week. He also lost his mom in November and his brother in September, and so we are really offering condolences to that entire family, and then to the family of Burl Turner, who was funeralized since the last meeting because in his passing. I want to remind people that we are preparing for the census. It is critical that everyone in the city of Gary be counted. And I know there's some people who are kind of fluid in their movement between Gary and other communities, but we want to count you in Gary, because more often than not, you attend school in Gary, you have services that you receive in Gary. We had our census kickoff and Thanksgiving celebration on Monday, the 25th, at the Genesis Center. We served over 500 families during that time. I want to certainly commend Dr. Vanessa Allen, who is chairing the Complete Count Committee, and the members of the committee, Dr. Sharon Liggins, Arlene Colvin, who are the vice chairs, Penelope Love, who's the secretary, LaShawn Brooks, who's the city lead, and a number of community business, clergy, resident, and other leaders. And the slogan this year is, I count, you count, and it's because you count, be counted. So we want everyone to begin to get acclimated. They're not going to use the information against you. We know that that is always a concern, so that is not something that we want residents to be worried about. We want you to worry, and this is the first census that is being done largely online. So we want to make sure that the folks who don't have computers of their own can access the census through the library and other sources. There will be computers that will be set up in other places publicly as well. Last Saturday, there was, November 30th was Small Business Saturday across the nation, and residents did in fact enjoy holiday shopping along the Broadway, Grant Street, and Lake Street corridors. We know that while the work on Lake Street is not 100% complete, it is substantially done, and it is certainly travelable. I will tell you that the last coat of blacktop was not laid intentionally because we want to get another season out of it, so it will be done in the spring. But we would encourage you to patronize local businesses as you prepare for the season that is up on us. I also want to, earlier I neglected to offer condolences to the family of Pastor Clay Evans. While Clay Evans is an Illinois pastor, he is a member of the Evans family over here from Clark Road Missionary Baptist Church. I also want you to know that there is a hiring for the holidays career fair that is going to be presented at the Excel Center. It's being done in partnership with Gary Workforce Development and the Goodwill Career Center. That is going to be Thursday, December 5th from 1 to 3. It is a free event and open to the public. Residents will also be able to apply for UPS and census jobs. And we know this tends to be a very busy season for UPS and for Amazon. I did want to mention, Mr. Chairman, that both our city engineer and Clotilde LeBroy were out at the Amazon site along with Evelyn Lowe, trying to determine the best way to address the issue that you raised, because it is an area of concern. I want to invite folks to a December 20th open house At City Hall, we will have an opportunity to look at the one-stop shop, the green roof, which is done, and the Hudson Campbell renovations. There will be a U.S. Steel giveaway also on December 20th at the Genesis Center. The doors open at 7 a.m. The giveaway is from 8 to 1. And I also know from 10 to 12 at the Railcat Stadium, there is a veterans event that is sponsored by by Mr. Farmer, but it's going to be held at the Railcat Stadium. I want to give to the council, when we first had the council's resolution of the sale leaseback, which seems like eons ago, there was a provision that talks about how the money that will be used. At that time, it was contemplated that there would be a lot of time and that there would be early opportunity. However, because the closing was delayed so long, I have a detailed distribution to pass out to the council at this time that itemizes how that money has been spent. And what I will tell you is that because a lion's share of that money is being used to pay off TAWs, there is not the question mark or I guess the concern that was initially raised. But you'll be able to see what I mean by that. I've got a couple more things. I just want to pass this out, Mr. Jean. So take one and pass it. I did want to also indicate that because of the sale leaseback, there will be an opportunity to make equipment purchases for general services, police, and parks from the general fund. And there will also be additional public infrastructure maintenance, specifically paving, striping, and crack sealing. We have actually finished just about the season, but there were a number of streets, Councilwoman Sparks Wade mentioned 43rd and 40th Avenue, that were added. We are also adding a portion of the alley behind Air Filter, the business on Adams Street, because that is a part of Plan B. Plan A is, of course, to move the crossing. That has been the discussion, but we also want to provide Plan B in the interim while we're communicating with the railroad. And so I do want to indicate that we did, in fact, request that the change be made from Washington to Adams, or from Adams to Washington. The initial response was a no, but we are also pursuing that as well, Councilwoman Sparks Wade. So I want to make you aware of that. There is also, I want to go back to building maintenance and capital improvements at both 900 Madison and the park pavilions. I know that the council had some issues about a number of the park pavilions. I would also say at 900 Madison, it's an OSHA compliance issue. There also is investment in community planning, programming rather, specifically the YWCA, the Urban League, the West Side Theater Guild, the Gary Historical Cultural Society, and the Roosevelt High School Athletic Department, specifically the girls, because I believe that was brought before the council last meeting. That completes my report, and I'll certainly entertain any questions or issues that the council would like to raise. Last but not least, yesterday, Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell had a meeting on code enforcement. And both she was there, the judge was there, Ms. Williams was there, and Mr. Franklin was there. There were no other representatives from the city. I want to apologize to Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell on behalf of the city for that failure on our part. It was a miscommunication, but at the same time, the parties who did attend, their time was valuable, and the failure of code enforcement officers other than Mr. Franklin to attend. So I just wanted to make that clear. That is my last.
When did you say that the job fair?
The job fair is December 5th at, this Thursday at 1, 2, 3.
At what?
At 1 o'clock, 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock. I also want to remind people that on December 9th, the Gary Historical and Cultural Society will have its annual Christmas celebration. And that will be at the Genesis Center at 5:30.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
are we still having the open house for Howell Park?
Yes, December 16th.
Okay.
Yes.
At what time?
It's at 4 p.m. It's, well, it would be shortly after the meeting. So I would say 5 o'clock. So we'll get that notice out because it was going to be in conjunction with the meeting, and I just wanted to check and make sure that we had confirmed that with the folks who were doing the work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. President? Madam Mayor, you mentioned that you were doing some crack sealing. I'd like to recommend Marquette Drive around the park there. It's got a huge crack that needs to be sealed. There's just one really long one. Goes
Okay.
all the way around.
Let me talk with Nate and Clotilde about that. I know that Nate is here, and I believe Clotilde is here as well. So let's work on getting that done.
Thank you.
I also wanted to address two issues relative to the community. And one is the concern relative to the CBA. While I know that a number of folks came out and expected that it would be heard tonight, I wanted to make sure that everybody understood what was in it. And so we are 100% in support of it. And so I want to make that clear. So on December 10th, I will be at the committee meeting. I was supposed to be at a good friend's retirement in Indianapolis, but I think this is important enough not to do that. And then on the 17th, we will be present in support of it. The other is relative to Mex Boulevard. Initially, we thought that it was something that had to be done by either the Plan Commission or the Board of Works. It turns out that that is within the power of the executive, and so we are in the process of drafting the executive order so that we can, in fact, file that and, if necessarily, bring that before the Board of Works. So I wanted to raise that issue.
Any other questions for the mayor?
Tried to answer every question.
So at this time, we have a few speakers who are speaking tonight about public portion. I'm going to have Vice President Hugh call.
And Mr. President, I'm going to apologize in advance. I've got a family matter to attend to.
Steinberg? Okay.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Michaela Spangenberg. I'm speaking tonight in solidarity with Black Lives Matter Gary regarding the recent shooting and ongoing police violence in the city of Gary. in particular, the shooting of Melvin Bowler, and previous to that, the killing of Rashad Cunningham, and the killing of Kamonte Cobbs, and the killings before that, and the ongoing need for there to be a civilian review board that gives this city real transparency and real accountability in terms of oversight of the police, which is not currently given by the current system. In addition, currently, the community needs immediately insight into and an update immediately into the names of the police that were involved in the shooting, Mr. Bowler's current condition, a full account of the incident, including any recordings, video, audio, and whether the protocols involving deaf and hearing disabled individuals were followed for that incident. Black Lives Matter Gary has, in conjunction with the community, has long fought for the need for a civilian review board in this community, a meaningful, true, independent civilian review board, and has been fighting alongside the community for that, and will continue to do so until that demand is met. And the need for a civilian review board is evidenced by the ongoing lack of any kind of justice around any of the killings or the shootings or the injuries, and the lack of information, the lack of justice, the lack of transparency that any people in the community have yet to receive. Thank you.
Ranielle Norman.
Good evening to the City Council. My name is Ranielle Norman. I'm a resident of Gears Glen Park for over 40 years. And I've noticed they closed 41st Avenue and Delaware Street, which is a through fare for me and a lot of other people. I use it on a regular basis. And during the winter months, 41st Avenue is the route out because the city plows the avenues before they do the streets. And if you can get to Broadway, you pretty much can make it out. And it's really critical for me and my wife both because we're both dialysis patients. I have to get out 3 days a week regardless. And 41st Avenue is a convenient route from my house and a lot of other people. It's a through fare. Delaware runs through two cities, Maryville all the way to 32nd Avenue in Gary. 41st Avenue runs through three cities, from Hobart, Gary, and to Dyer. So it's a through fare for a lot of people. And when the traffic is congested on 94, you find it backing up on Broadway and sometime on Georgia Street. But 41st Avenue is a very critical street for us, especially the people that live in it. It's probably used pretty much for the people that live in Hobart or even in Dyer or Sherrville or any other city because it's a through fare for both cities. So I would like to see them open it back up. I just don't see a reason for them closing 41st Avenue, along with Kentucky Street also. That kind of locked us in there. Thank you.
Thank you. Doreen Carey.
My name's Doreen Carey. I'm a resident of the 1st District. And I really misunderstood, I think, a comment that was made at the end of the last council meeting that said that there would be a public hearing on the 3rd. And I realized I wasn't available for the meeting on the 26th. But I actually thought I would have an opportunity to speak to the council before you pass the comprehensive plan update. But I would like to state my continued concerns that despite all the excellent public input prior to the plan being finalized, the actual updated final draft was not made available to the public until 10 days before a special meeting was held by the Plan Commission to pass it. And I really feel like 10 days was not sufficient for a plan that is so important to the future of the city and how we're planning our neighborhoods. So that was my concern about the insufficient public notice. When it comes to the concern I had about not having an updated zoning code to go with the updated plan, I really believe that based on the 2-year process that was involved in creating the updated comprehensive plan, that the code was being updated at the same time. So I really believe that sometime early, maybe January or so, we might have an updated code that you could pass to go along with the updated comprehensive plan. Now it's my understanding it may take the better part of next year to finalize an updated zoning code to go with the updated comprehensive plan. So that means that you agree that you like what the updated comprehensive plan says in terms of your neighborhoods, and the public has probably seen the same thing, but the zoning code that we have now doesn't match that. So that means that you'll have to sort of change the zoning code piecemeal if you actually want to follow some of those proposals in the updated comprehensive plan. Because they just don't match right now. And ultimately, they have to, when you make a proposal to change the existing code by having another use. So I just wanted to state that. I agree that there's some excellent data in the plan, and there really isn't, I'm sure with all the public input that the mayor described, and I was certainly part of some of that, that those are all good things. It's just that now we have a comprehensive plan that doesn't match the existing code, and that's going to create some problems when you try and move forward on that. So that, I just wanted to state that, and now you've passed it, so now that's the way it's going to be. But the last thing I want to say is I really want to thank our Councilwoman Rebecca Wyatt for the service that she's given the First District during her tenure on the council. So thank you very much, Rebecca.
Robin Johnson. She left. Jim Nowacki.
Good evening, Council. My name is Jim Nowacki. I live in the 2nd District, and I'm always very comfortable with the common, well-known. I don't necessarily need any surprises in my life. I don't need any big changes that are unexpected. That's one of the reasons I'm always very comfortable coming here to the Council. I can come to the Council every first and third Tuesday and be absolutely assured that there will be no surprises. There will be nothing unexpected. For instance, today, the Council took action on 2 important resolutions. One of the resolutions was regarding the schools and the proposed support for the work being taken in the form of the resolution. Also, another resolution regarding the acceptance of the city's master plan. And no surprises there, inasmuch as I had suggested at other meetings, nobody is going to read that plan, nobody's going to implement that plan. 5 of you will be gone next year, the mayor is going to be gone, the entire staff will be gone. Nobody's going to do anything with that plan. But the thing that really didn't surprise me one bit was when the mayor waxed endlessly about the input, about all the people that they contacted, about how carefully this plan had been constructed, how every detail was looked at, 600 pages of details. And one question from any member of the council, one question, Ms. Wyatt asked about the schools. And Mr. Bittner came to the mic and said, well, we didn't ask them about the schools. And I'm saying, you mean to tell me, well, you didn't ask me. I have a great interest in plans for the city, but I didn't attend any of those meetings. I didn't know about any of those meetings. And And I'm not surprised by that. I don't expect to attend any of the meetings for this plan. But to imagine that the city makes a priority of our public schools, but that nobody from the redevelopment commission, none of the consultants even sat down and asked the schools. A crucial portion of planning for the city has to be planning for the schools. We can't just plan to go down to Indianapolis and ask for $125 million. And they may ask, well, what plans does the city have for the schools? I think Mr. President even suggested that the resolution presented regarding the schools was not complete, was not adequate, and needed to have more discussion. So, no surprise that while the mayor talks about how careful the plan was done, the most fundamental part of that plan would have been, what are we going to do with our school system in the city? And nobody had even thought to ask. But you guys passed it, without a question, one question. Thank you, Ms. Wyatt.
Henry Key. Henry Key. Next, we'll have David McKee.
My name is Henry Key. I live on 41st Avenue since 1978. My complaint is about closing of the railroad track on 41st Avenue. But as Levita said, that's a hopeless case, so I really have nothing further to say other than the representative of the railroad, they represented that client very well. I just wish our city officials would represent us better.
David McKee, Charles Cooper, Kerry Cooper, and Kiwana. Yeah, right there.
Good afternoon. My name is David McKee. I also live on 41st Avenue in Glen Park for 40 years. And never seen so many potholes in my life when I lived in the South, coming down 41st Avenue for all those years. And finally, when they fixed it, they shed it off. And in front of my house, I had Council Barge at my house this year. If I come out of my house going to church, I had to park my car on the other side of the street at Mr. Cooper's house, or either Mr. Key's house. It's so muddy in the front of my house that I can't get in my car. And if I'm out somewhere and if it rains and I come back home, I gotta figure out a way to walk into my house. That's how bad it is. And I never asked the city for anything, but I plead with them. I had surgery this afternoon, but it was that vital for me to make it here to this meeting, to ask for somebody to help me with the driveway in front of my house. And to open 41st back up.
Coopers. You got the Coopers.
Good evening, Council. My name is Charles Cooper, and I'm also, my wife and I have been affected by the railroad crossing being shut down. I can look out of my window. Let me deal with what could be a matter of life and death. I've watched police cars come for emergencies. I've watched ambulances come for services. And why should they have to be detoured to get to an emergency? I don't know who benefit from that crossing, but it's certainly not the citizens that in our neighborhood. And businesses are being affected by it as well. Like I said, it's a no-brainer. I've been trying to figure out why would they fix the street. And as far as I know, the street belonged to the city, not the railroad company. How would the railroad company feel if we blocked that track? So I'm not talking about just my own inconvenience. Why should I, if I'm going, sometimes they have accidents on 94. They detour the traffic on Ridge Road. Okay, I can go out, I used to be able to go out 41st to avoid the traffic jam. That's no longer an option for me. And I'm really disappointed in the track being allowed to be closed. Ms. Wade, I thank you for allowing us to have a voice. We should have had a voice before they barricaded the street. Thank you.
Good evening, council. That's my husband. And I hate to be repetitive, but I guess it's just nothing else to say except we were out of town for about 3 weeks and we got back and they said, well, they've closed the railroad tracks. Well, I'm thinking, okay, they weren't that bad. I'm thinking they closed them for repair. But they say, no, they permanently closed them. I would think as a citizen in a neighborhood, before you do something major like that, you would at least contact the neighborhood citizens and, get some kind of opinion as to, and to find out why exactly those streets that they closed. And like my neighbor said, I lived in that neighborhood 44 years. I go out the expressway sometime and I come back Broadway. And before I know it, I'm at 41st because that's my usual route for 44 years, every week of my life, 2 or 3 times a week. And that if I need to go over to Griffith or Highland, I go 41st Avenue because it's from Hobart to Highland. And so to close the railroad tracks on a through street through so many cities is baffling to me. I don't understand it. Somebody said it was because of accidents, and we are aware of every accident that happens anywhere in the neighborhood. There's no more accidents at that railroad crossing than it is anywhere else in the city of Gary. We are very disappointed, very hurt. And not only did they close 41st Avenue, but sometime I would go out the back way, which is Kentucky Street, and now they've closed that one off, so I feel like I'm boxed in my neighborhood, and I'm very disappointed and very, let me just leave it at disappointed.
Good evening, Council. Fabana Razuli. Also of the 6th District, been living in East Glen Park since I moved here 28 years ago. And frequently, the same street, Kentucky, would be my way to get out. And when I passed by too, I was like, okay, they got it blocked temporarily for some maintenance, and was surprised when I heard they had shut it down. I'm just thinking about all the people who came and spoke today, if they would have the opportunity, really known to, hey, to talk about this issue. And I'm glad we're going to, I don't know if the councilman-elect is here too, but we're going to continue to struggle with this to try to get some justice for the citizens, for the people in the community. A couple other things I want to talk about. I wanted to echo what Michaela was talking about earlier with Black Lives Matter Gary, and this recent rash of police shootings that has to be dealt with. It's like, we talked about the independent civilian review board. It's not going to hurt anything. As a matter of fact, it'll make the police jobs easier when you think about that. Because we shouldn't be killing our citizens like this. 50 years ago in Chicago, it was 21-year-old Chairman Fred Hampton of the Black Panther Party and 22-year-old Mark Clark. They were assassinated in a shootout 50 years ago in a couple hours. And it's going to be commemorated in Chicago and pretty much all over. Well, what these young brothers were doing, and sisters, they were challenging this police violence, this police brutality. Sometimes we hear about the free breakfast, the sickle cell, all that too, but they were seriously challenging this police violence. And here we are 50 years later, and we're doing it to ourselves. So no, we need to do something about that. We need to really do something about that. Those are our families. I just got back We spoke about this at the last council meeting. The next day, I went to Louisiana to be with my father on his 82nd birthday, and just got back today. And, you know, just thinking about the brother, the 82-year-old brother who had issues hearing, you know, and just to be shot like that. I haven't heard, is he okay? Is he still with us? And we don't, he's still with us, but where's the update? You know, we don't hear anything. So, yeah, we got to do something about that. So those are a couple things I want to share. Real quick, this whole thing about the schools, when the sister was talking about the schools, she mentioned about the poverty rate of our children here. And we still live in a racist society, it's class and race. And it's tough for us to get jobs in the private sector. We get jobs, we get our careers in the public sector. And so when we close down more and more schools, those are less principals, less administrators, less teachers, less patrons. And that's the tax money that comes in our community to help keep our roads okay, you know, to keep things working in our community, keeps our parks okay. So all this connects. So we need to think about that when we think about, you know, closing even more of our schools. They should have never closed Lew Wallace. And there's probably a lot more, should have never closed Lew Wallace. But probably something else, but, you know, good meeting, and I'll holler at y'all later.
Let me acknowledge that Councilman-elect Williams out in the 1st District, Posey Willis going on the 2nd District, and Dwight Williams of the 6th District, our Councilman-elect. Thank you all for being here tonight, and thank the public for being with us on tonight and indulging in decent conversation that we had in the legislature being passed. Everyone have a safe night, one long. Entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Now adjourned.
Where did you say that down here?